Hi, welcome to this session on navigating Google Cloud workflows to do with productivity and collaboration. My name's Jared.
And I'm Adam.
And we're both teachers and digital learning advisors with the Department of Education.
And just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, so it's not live, but there will be someone in the chat whilst you're watching this where you can post questions, ask for resources, and that person will be available to help you as you watch.
So before we jump into the content of today's session on Google Cloud workflows, we'd first like to do an acknowledgement of country.
Perfect. We'd just like to recognise the ongoing custodians of the land and waterways where we work and live. We pay respects to elders past and present as ongoing teachers of knowledge, songlines and stories. We strive to ensure every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander learner in New South Wales achieves their potential through education. On the left here is a nice little picture of Lake Parramatta, the lands in which I work and live on Durrag land. So we just like to acknowledge that land as well.
Excellent. So in today's, or in a series of videos that we're going to be, a series of sessions we're going to be recording, we're going to take you through a series of activities that your school can undertake to build their capacity and understanding of working in this new cloud platform. So we go through these 5 steps from emerging through to innovating. And a lot of these correspond to different behaviours that we see in schools. And I guess the idea is we'll show you a series of steps under each sort of heading on how that will help you progress. A little bit like a scope and sequence of learning, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in and have a little bit of a look at that first level. So emerging.
Yeah, well, we'll probably, tell us about emerging and then we'll give it a quick overview of each one.
So emerging, I guess, are those schools that have been very reliant on our school servers. So they're very much still in that space. Maybe COVID came and went and your school community wasn't capable of taking advantage of those cloud services, which is completely understandable depending on the area that you are in. And I guess some of the cloud workflows are brand new. So a lot of these ideas that we're sharing today are going to be brand new to you, or you've just rolled into, say, a files on your own time migration, and a lot of the learning is very new. Diving into developing, I guess those are the schools that dabbled a little bit more in that cloud space, maybe have tried a few things, maybe, I guess that word dabble is kind of good. They haven't kind of fully committed, but there's maybe some staff members within the school that are trying a few new things, but others that aren't so much. In terms of consolidating, we do have those kind of arrows everywhere, which is often those schools that just need to bring it all together. You've got lots of staff maybe trying lots of different things, some doing a lot, some doing not much, but also very widespread. So using a range of different platforms.
Yeah, you might have some files stored in Microsoft, some might be in Google Land, some might have been migrated stuff off the server, things on USB. So consolidating all those ideas and improving some of those digital workflows.
Moving on to refining, I guess those schools that have just been in the space a little bit longer, they're getting reasonably confident with using cloud storage or using, say, Google as a platform for teaching and learning, using Google as a platform for file storage and some efficiencies as well. There might just be a small collection of staff maybe that haven't fully embraced, I guess, some of the new workflows. That might be the office, or it might be a particular faculty. It might just be a particular stage within the school. So for this refining stage, I guess it's making sure everyone in the school is on the same page and being able to, I guess, rely on those workflows across the entire school without any kind of missing links in that connection. And then innovating, I guess, Jared, that's kind of the space where the school is very confident and they're just looking for new ways to make things a bit more efficient, new ways to be creative in the classroom when using Google platform and those sorts of things.
And we're probably already very confident in the cloud space prior to any sort of file migration. For them, that migration probably acted just as archiving from the server, really. So under each step, we're going to show you, as I said, we'll show you a series of steps that will help you move through the sequence of learning. So the first step being emerging. So in this sequence of steps today, we're going to show you using the syncing client software called Google Drive for Desktop. If you haven't already got that installed, that is something that we will show you how to get and use today. We'll show you how to create, share and attach files using that sync client on the things that you do and the files that you create. And we'll also look at consolidating your personal files. So quite often from a teacher point of view, our files might be in multiple locations, be it USBs or other cloud servers. How can we get them all in the one place to improve our efficiency, find things when we need them? And then lastly, we'll go through a little bit of how we can upload media directly to our faculty shared drive, so we're not storing any devices, any photos or anything like that on our personal device, and how we can easily get them in the cloud. And if you complete all those steps and everyone at your school feels confident at that, you highly likely you could assess yourself at being in that developing stage, which is in our next session.
Perfect. Well, I guess let's dive in and have a little bit of a look at, say, that personal and shared cloud storage in the Google ecosystem. Let's have a look at, see what that looks like, and have a look at, I guess, the browser version, the desktop version, when we might use each, and how best we can incorporate them into our workflows.
So like always, if you're fairly new to this space, and I'm sure you've already had a dabble now that files have been migrated, but as a source of truth, it's always great to kick off in our web view. And the Google Workspace being very internet browser reliant, this is a good place to kick off from in one instance, and we'll show you a few other ways of accessing this as we go through. So if we click on our Google, as you should know by now, you'll see your different applications that are available to you. We're going to mostly concentrate on Drive today, touch a little bit on Classroom and some of the files that you can use at your school. So when you do open your Drive, and I think I've got it open here at the top with our test account, we arrive here in our Google Drive. So Adam, tell us the difference between personal files and shared files, and how does that correlate to this space?
Yeah, perfect. So I guess within Google, I guess they sort of pride themselves as one of their features of having a really simple interface. I guess intuitive is kind of their goal in the way they set things up. So you can see within here, once we're within our Google Drive, we call this, our Google Drive as a whole. And there's actually two parts. You've got your MyDrive over here on the left-hand side. So MyDrive, really nice language, I guess. It's mine. That content is the person, is you're the owner of that content. Of course, you can choose to share content out of that space, but that's your own drive in terms of probably got a correlation or a link to that old U drive back when you were using the school server, or if you still are, that's the kind of place that lives. Directly underneath my drive, again, really nice language, makes sense, are the shared drives. So these drives are locations that have shared membership and also shared ownership. So everything within these spaces has lots of people have access to them, and you also have a bit of a collective or shared ownership of the content. You can see some of these drives, I guess, are named very similarly to our old T4L server drive. So this might have been a school that's gone through the files anywhere, anytime process, and now they have those drives set up here in shared drives as opposed to on a local server. Both of these places are really accessible through this browser. So to switch between my personal content and shared content, really, really simple.
Something to probably note here in the past, probably prior to shared drives being available, if your school spent any time in this space, is that some people tend to share a lot out of their MyDrive file space, and we have seen a few schools share their entire faculty out of one person's Google MyDrive. Best practice would be to move those files into a shared space, basically around, if it's in your personal file space, about 90 or so days out, if you were to leave the Department of Education for whatever reason, you go work in the private system, you no longer work for the department, 90 days later, those files are removed. And if that collection of files is something that your school relies on, they will lose access to them. So then it just removes any risk, really. Having them in a shared space, everyone's an equal owner in a shared drive that is a member of it.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, there obviously Jared pointed out those risks in the MyDrive. So definitely have a think about where you want your files to live, whether it's something just for you. And if you do want to share it with an individual or a couple of people, perfectly fine. We'll run through some sharing options throughout this session, but having a think about when probably a shared location is best.
Just before we move off this space, just to note that your Google Drive is available as a web app. It's also available as a desktop program, or a desktop sync client as we call it, and it's also available as an app on an iOS device that you can download from the App Store to get onto your devices. Now, one thing to note about a shared drive, there is a limit, and that limit is around 400,000 items. So that's just something to be aware of when you start, which will dabble in a little bit later, but just to note, there is a limit. Over 400,000 items is a max for shared spaces
per shared drive.
Per shared drive.
So very easy, I guess. If you know you're reaching that limit, you probably get a warning from Google to say that you're reaching that limit. You can always just create a new shared drive, or talk to, make a log call with Connect and request another shared drive to be created for you in that space.
Absolutely.
So I guess
get the sync client going.
Yeah, Jared called out the fact that we've got that browser interface, and now we're going to have a look at that desktop client as well. So
that right? Yeah. So in the search bar on your device, you just type in Google Drive, and the software was available for us to install.
Perfect. So to get this on your devices, Jared, we've got image devices or school-owned devices that are Windows 10 devices what are the options for getting this Google Drive desktop app, or should it already be there for some people? What's that
For the most part, when a school goes through the FAA or Files Anywhere Anytime migration, the Google Drive software is pushed out to all the devices at your school. Now, that is a one-time push out of that device, of that software, sorry, and then you can run it exactly how we did it on the screen. The other way of getting that is to from the web view, if you want to jump back there briefly, Adam, at the top of your screen is a little cog. Click on that little cog and it says Get Drive for Desktop. Now, this is the option you want to use from a personal device, not from, if it's a school image device, then this would be the method you would do. You would say Get Drive for Desktop. And then the third way to get it, if it is a school-owned device, is to have it get whoever your computer coordinator is or whoever has those administration rights. They can push the Google Drive app out through the UDM to be available on your school-owned device.
Yeah, and I guess that third option, ideal for bigger schools. If you've got a lot of devices that you need to push it to, you don't want to have that one individual person manually logging onto every computer and manually installing it. If you're a much smaller school and you've only got a few devices to do, then doing it manually and coming through and just clicking that download. But you do, again, need those install rights either way.
From a personal device, click the cog, click Get Drive for Desktop, follow the prompts. It's a really simple process to follow. It does not take long. And once it's installed, we get that prompt that popped up. We might, if we click on, we'll type that in again, and I probably might remember. We'll say Google, there it is there, Google Drive. And we'll be prompted to log in. You basically just follow the prompts.
So a good thing to note, I guess, because Google is very browser-based, you are signing in via a browser. So it'll kick up a new page for you, a new browser page. It did appear for us at the front. Sometimes I think in various schools we've seen it pop up behind another window, and so it appears like it's not there or not working. So just make sure you check all your browser windows. It should pop up in front, but sometimes it doesn't. And then just a matter of typing in your DOE login. I guess a really good point to note with our Google accounts, with everything to do with Google, it's your @education.nsw.gov.au. So that little bit, that extension there, it's not actually our email extension, which is the @DET. Same for students, same for teachers for Google. But I guess for when we're logging into Microsoft content or some other apps, we do need to use the @DET. So it's just one of those little things we've got to remember. When Google, it's @education.
Yeah, 100%. Click sign in. And then it basically says you're good to go. Now, you can open some preferences. There's no real preferences you need to change, but there are a few elements in there that you can check out. So what we'll probably notice now, if Adam opens up the File Explorer on your computer, you will notice there is just probably under, here it comes, right down the bottom there under the, clicking a few options there. So it says Google Drive. It's been added to the quick access at the top, and it's also added to our list under this PC as an avenue to get your files, and you can see your MyDrive and your shared files there. Effectively think of this as another window into the same content. The content we saw in the web view is exactly the same as what you see here. So whatever you do in this space does affect the other as well. Yeah. So there is our
one in the same
spaces.
Perfect.
That's exactly how it works.
If we go back there, those shared drives, you'll notice the exact same naming conventions, the exact same locations, and as Jared said, 2 doors into the same room, which is perfect.
100%. So it's a really easy interface. And I really like how they're next to each other in the Google desktop client. So it's really easy to switch between your personal and your shared files with the rest of your school.
Now, I guess, Jared, the question is, these are living in the cloud, and I guess, I'm accessing them through my File Explorer. Can I treat files and folders in these spaces very much like I would, say, my desktop or my documents and those sorts of things? Or anything I need to be to treat them differently, or do they just operate the same?
Well, it depends on what type of file is, really. So Google has their native documents. As we know, we have Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets. And how we can tell the difference from this view, if you look down that type column, we can see says file, folder, JPG, and then there's ones that say Google Docs and Google Slides. So those Google Docs and Google Slide ones, you can't copy them and move them in this interface as Microsoft, unfortunately, the Microsoft environment that we are loading from doesn't understand how they work. Because effectively, if you look at that file size there, 1 KB, very, very tiny file. It's actually just a link to an online space. So you're not actually moving a physical file. You would just be relocating the link to that file. So to move a Google Doc around. You should do it through the web interface for the most part. However, you can get other files to be stored here in your File Explorer.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess just taking note of that file type, if it's anything that's Google native, yeah, it does need to be treated a little bit differently in terms of moving it, but in terms of accessing it, it's just the same as any other document in terms of double clicking, open up that document.
Yeah.
The real great advantage, I guess, of the Google Drive is that you can store your Google and your Microsoft content in there side by side, which is really handy for those schools that have a little bit of Google. They might be Google facing for students, and they might be having quite a lot of Microsoft content for programs or admin kind of processes. You can have both of them side by side, which is really handy.
So as an example here, you see I've got some Microsoft Word documents sitting in this Google MyDrive folder. And because of the way it's set up, if I want my Microsoft files to open in Microsoft, if I do it through the web version, it's going to open as a Google Doc. But if I do it here through the desktop client, it will actually open up in Microsoft Word, and if that is my intention. And yes, there's a file of mine that I have put in there for example today.
Perfect. So and as you can see, I guess Google's popped up with this little add-on to see who's editing Microsoft Office files in Google. So again, similar to Microsoft and with Google, they always bring out these little updates. They're trying to improve our experiences, which is great.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, to be aware that when you're using this desktop client, it will always reach for the software that's on the computer first, as opposed to the browser, where it will just open in the browser as best it can. But with the desktop client, if you're using a PDF, it'll probably reach for Adobe to open that. If you're opening a Word document, it'll reach for Microsoft Word. If you're opening an Excel document, it'll reach for Microsoft Excel, which is really great.
And here it comes. And so I've just opened up a document, and it is opened up in the browser. So whenever you open a Google Doc, it's going to go straight to the browser for you to take, use, and modify that program. So it does work really, really well. It does give you that speedy access. It also is going to really help you attach certain files as we move forward in different spaces. Now, I guess at this point, should we touch on what happens with a Microsoft document in here?
Yeah,
there's a few things obviously with a Google Doc, it opens in the browser. Every keystroke is automatically saved. There's no having to save your files. And that's one of the great versions of this, but one of the great things about it, and that you can open it on any device at any time and pick up where you left off, even if it's open in another room.
Yeah, so let's quickly have a look. I think you did open up a Word document from that location. Let's say that one there.
Yep.
So you'll notice that the top corner, autosave is off.
Yes.
Even though this is saved in the cloud, it is saved in Google Drive, and it will be able to be saved back there. Keep track of that. So if I do make any changes, so let's just add some space and text, make up changes document, some really great changes there. And if I do go to close that document, it's going to prompt me, did you want to resave that to the Google Drive, which is good. So I can't, I'm not going to accidentally close it without saving. I can say don't save, but I will say save for that one. So what that's going to do is going to update that version, send it to Google Drive, and store it in the cloud. So that process is good, not quite as good as being in a Google Doc where every single keystroke will be changed as you type it, and there is no, you'll see there's no save button up here. It just kind of has a cloud. That means that the document is there. So a tick in a cloud basically means it's saving, and it's saved as it goes on. So really the key difference there between Microsoft living in Google Drive is it doesn't have that autosave feature. Google within Google is always best, and I guess Microsoft within Microsoft is always best. Doesn't mean you can't cross over, but just some things to be aware of.
The other thing to note, if you do open a Word doc from your Google Drive, if you try and share it, it will say, hey, this is not in your Microsoft storage space, and it won't allow you to actually share it out from using that method. There is a method we can use to try and share it, but it's an extra step. And I wonder whether, should we show that now?
Yeah, maybe we'll dive into Google sharing first, and then we can have a look at
absolutely.
If you're using that Microsoft content, which very much does happen in schools, we want to be able to share both. But I guess the most streamlined option is if you're using Google, let's utilize those native tools and get the most out of it with less clicks, I guess. So you'll notice in the top corner, you've got a great little share button there, right up in the top corner next to your sign in to make sure you signed in. So asking to share this particular document, I can add people or groups. I can write a little message and then I can send it off. So I could type in someone's name in here. So we could type in a student. This is an example, I guess, student here that we've got. So I can click on that and that will send that to the student. Now it says here only people with the link can, only people with access can open the link. So I might choose to change that and I can send that off as well. The great thing about Google is that it also has a whole range of groups, or we'll call them AD groups or Active Directory groups. And that's kind of some language just to say that the department sort of knows who your classroom teachers are, who your office are, who your executive are. It also has for primary schools particularly useful, it pulls some information from EMU, which knows your classes. So if you do type in, say, a school code into here, it will actually pick up that school code and it will know. So this particular one is a 9068, whatever school code that is connected to. So it's picked up that there is non-teachers from that school code. So after the school code, you can type teacher, you can type class, you can type grade, and you can share content out to a particular cohort of students or a particular cohort of teachers as well. So there you go, you've got just year 2 students. So really useful in Google that you can actually just utilize your school code. If you don't know what it is, find out from someone who does know.
Yep.
Probably someone in your front office will know what that is. And then you can actually utilize that feature. So really handy to be able to share a particular document. But I guess coming back to the idea of, would I share this particular document with my whole class through that method? Or would there be another way, maybe through Google Classroom or maybe through a shared drive that I'd be consistently just dropping content into? That's, I guess, a decision that you got to think about before you click that share button.
Absolutely. And I do like the simplicity of how easy it is to share out with other people. So at the moment, this is a very one-to-one direct link. Something to note about adding those AD groups is probably, we'll probably touch on it a little bit more, but just making sure you do share it with the right AD group and you don't broadcast it out unintentionally to the wrong audience.
Perfect. You can also get down the bottom here, you can get a copied link. So rather than adding someone in particular, I could grab a link to this document. That link could then go into an email, could go into a message of some kind, could be posted into another document, linking this document to that document. So the ability to get links is really easy through that share button in the top corner of your documents as well.
So if we wanted to create a file, I guess we can use either of those interfaces, right, to create a file. Can we create it in the, does it have to always go through the web view, or can we do it through other views as well? How do we create a file here?
Let's have a look. I guess we'll start with the web browser. Lots of Google users really enjoy the web browser. It's the way it's built to be used. So we'll start in there. And the really great thing is when you're in MyDrive, you click on new and it gives you a whole lot of options here. So you can click up a new folder to help store things, a new upload, which is really useful for moving content to your personal MyDrive. You can upload a whole folder worth of content, or you can kick up a brand new Google Doc, sheet, slide, or form straight from here. So I can go in and do a brand new doc. The great thing is, because I'm in my web browser, I'm in my MyDrive, it's automatically put that document straight into MyDrive. It's saved on that particular location, and it's good to go. So all I've got to do is name this particular document, and then I'm good to go, and it will save that name as well. You can see it's saving and saved to Drive. So you notice that pops up straight away. Every time Jared's modifying that document, saving every single keystroke, which is really useful. And that will be stored here in my drive here.
And it's really good practice to, before you go, say, give me a new file, is to go to the place you want that file to live permanently. And I'm sure in your own personal drive, whatever organizational structure works for you, go to that place, give me a new file, away you go.
Great to folderize.
But in the File Explorer, can we do the same thing?
Yeah, let's have a look. So we'll jump into our Google Drive over here. We'll probably go back into MyDrive again. Everything we're showing is exactly the same in MyDrive or shared drives. You simply go in the shared drive, click new, and you get to start up a new document there as well. So I'll go into MyDrive. I'm going to right click on some empty space over to the right here. So I didn't right click on a document or a folder, just found some space over to the edge. And then I can hover over new, which is the second from the bottom. And actually really handy here, you can see a whole bunch of things that I can start up a new version of. I can do a new doc, sheet, or slide, which is your Google native content, which is awesome. But I've also got Microsoft's options there as well. So really great for a way to start up either Google native or Microsoft content within your Google Drive. Gives you that nice bit of flexibility. So we might start up a Google Sheet, Google Slide straight from there. So you can see every time we're using that Google content, it launches into the browser, which is really handy. So again, just got to give it a name at the top, and then I'm off and running to create this slideshow, and it will be saved back into I jump back into my drive, it's going to be saved straight back into that drive, which is good. So yeah, as Jared called out, creating your content in the shared space or in the cloud space is really beneficial.
100%. Now, so that's just creating files. There's two ways to do it, nice and simple. The other thing, I guess, just touching back on those Microsoft files, if we go back to that desktop space, if we can just find a Microsoft document, like before when you couldn't share it out. And the reason why we highlight this is because we know there's a few schools that are using this method of putting Microsoft documents in it, particularly if you have gone with the Google space and your school's been using Microsoft a lot in the past. But if I wanted to share this from this interface, it would be a matter of you have to right click and you go down here to say share with Google Drive, whereas the share button won't work necessarily in there, and then you'll get this same sort of familiar share interface that Adam showed previously. We'll have a few more details all about sharing docs a little later on.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess we also want to look at, Jared, kind of consolidating some of our information. So I guess in the
actually, one thing that we haven't touched on is that, and this probably happens a lot when, say, files are stored in we know the files are stored in Google Drive, and if you've only been accessing them on the net, what about attaching them to emails and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll look at grabbing a link to that document and sharing it out. So let's jump into our essentials, back into our department essentials.
And we'll also show how we can get those, like from using the browse option, depending on the file type. So if you're using a Google Doc, you'll need to share a link. If you give it a file format from a different, if it's a Microsoft-based one, you can attach it using that sync line.
Yeah, perfect. So we just jumped into our email. This is Outlook web browser version. There's also a desktop web browser version. You can choose whichever one works for you. They both have a lot of good functionality, which is excellent. Some people, I guess, say the online browser version is a little bit more pretty. I guess it looks a little bit nicer. Nice colors and nice icons as well, which is great. So go to new email. We're going to get a brand new email here. We can put a lots of reminders here, which is great. We can put the email into someone. We might send that to student 968. We'll be using that email a lot for a lot of our examples. We'll put a subject in there that it might be sending something off to a teacher or student. Most likely we'll be emailing other staff members. So then within our Google Doc here, we can go up and we can actually grab a share link like we showed before. Grab that share link. I guess the access here is restricted. So again, when we're sharing, we want to be thinking about who we're sharing with, what kind of access we're giving, and we'll also look at, I guess, some other options later. So this is restricted access, meaning we've shared access to a particular person, and that's restricted as it is. I can open up that access a little bit more with this link, and I can say, actually, anyone within Department of Education with the link can be a viewer of this content. So I can then grab that link, send that out. You must have a Department of Education account, so therefore it's restricted to parents and community. They won't be able to access this document without an @education login, which is really great. If I want to open it up a little bit further, I then can change that to anyone with the link. So that's, again, pulling back on some of the restrictions. It's still a view only, so you can see on the right-hand side, it's still a view only link, but it is kind of, removing some of those restrictions. And there might be times when we do want to share a document with particular content to our parent community. So you can peel back some of those restrictions or re-add them as you see fit.
And as we saw before, if it's an internal document, you would probably select Department of Education only, and we can change it from either being a viewer, or you could make them an editor, let them make changes to your document. So in this case, let's say I wanted something from one of my staff. Once that's selected, that anyone in the department is an editor, I'm going to grab a copy link, and we are going to jump back over to our email and just paste that link in there. What are some of the benefits once this email goes out? What's this going to help us with a problem that we'd seen before, probably around duplication, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the link is a sharing link. It's going to give access to the same document. So whether it's a view only, but especially with this editing, you would send someone a document because you want them to add some ideas to it or add some content, build out the information. With a share link, it gives them access to the same document. So you're not sending another version of or a copy of. Yep. So it's not going to have my version, then I'll send it off, say, to Jared, and then he'll have the updated version, then he'll need to send it back to me with his changes. It's the same document. So I'll be able to go back into my same document and see any of those changes that Jared has made, and then that we don't have that version kind of that duplication or variations of versions. So I think I've got the latest, but actually someone else has made some changes somewhere else and they think they've got the latest, and then we get that miscommunication. And then there's also that time spent trying to figure out which is the most current and how we're going to collate that information without kind of losing any of the content. So eliminates a lot of those problems.
Yeah, and like if you feel like the destination needs their own copy and you don't want them to make any changes, it's like the way that they would almost get their own copy is to change this to a view-only link, and you copy that one, and then the other end, if they need their, and we'll send it to them, they can only view it, but then they can also go file save at the destination of the email and get their own copy.
Yeah, perfect. So that's, I guess, one way of throwing that Google link into a email rather than uploading copy. What we can do, and I guess Google doesn't have that upload a copy because it is a browser-based, but what we'll do is we'll jump back into our emails. And as you're probably more familiar with, the way your workflows probably work at the moment is looking for the little paperclip, which is our attachment kind of icon.
Yeah. So
looking for attachments. If I do click on there, you do get a few different options. It's highlighting some particular Word documents we've used. It does have the option of adding a link, so we could then, again, pop the link in that way as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to go up to browse this computer, because what it's going to do is show us all the locations that are available on this computer. And because we've just logged into our desktop, our Google desktop client, that will be an option for us.
I really like this option, and we recommend doing that. Anytime you want to attach something, go to browse, unless it's a Google native doc, go to browse, and then you see this familiar interface where we could go into our drive or our shared drives and grab a file.
Yeah, so we'll stay in MyDrive for now. We'll have a little bit of play in the shared drive. So we might add a few different things. We might add in, say, this particular program doc there. I'll click on open. So that's popped that in there for that one. Let's go back in and add another one. So browse again into Google Drive, into MyDrive. And let's have a look. And I'll check the file type. Let's see if we can find, we've got some Google Jamboards, Google Docs. Let's go into, let's see if we can find a Word document in here.
There's one there in the 6BP folder.
Oh, 6BP. All right, there we are. Number 4 in programs. We've got plenty of Word docs here, so we can look at the type. I can see that's a Word document. So let's pop that one in, open that one. Okay, so now it prompts with how do you want to share this file? So we've got the option of uploading and sharing as a OneDrive link. So what that's going to do is take that, upload it to your OneDrive if you've signed in, and then take a copy of it. A couple of different steps it's going to automate for you there, but I guess that's only if you have logged into the OneDrive and those sorts of things. Otherwise, it's going to prompt you to attach as a copy. So again, looking at the difference between having Microsoft living in Google or using a Google native as well. So we might attach a copy for that particular one. So it is sent there, but it's also sent a copy of. So that's a little bit of a different idea there, rather than uploading it to the cloud and sharing a link.
Absolutely. So for a Google native doc, you want to look at dropping a link, whether it be a view or an edit. And for any other file type, you can attach straight in here using that desktop sync client. It gives a reasonably familiar interface. Probably what we want to avoid in this place is having people go to their file storage, downloading it to their desktop, then attaching it to email and then sending it. Just all these clicks together just makes for an inefficient process.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect.
Cool. So the next area that we might jump across to is quite often as teachers, we have our data a little bit everywhere. And it's a good and efficient workflow is to get everything all in one place just to make stuff easy to access. Some of those places might be having it on a USB or a portable hard drive, and we'll show you how we can easily get those into our Google Drive. Whether it came from, maybe it's still sitting on your ET4L server in that personal MyDrive space. So before, when you clicked on File Explorer, you might see your name at the bottom. In there was about 1 gigabyte of storage. You may have some files in there. And I guess if maybe you came from another school and you had OneDrive, and you'd like to move some of that content, we can show you some ways of moving it across.
Yeah, perfect. So let's jump in. I guess we'll start with the browser, and then we'll show you how you can use it with the desktop client as well. So if I jump into this File Explorer, just shrink it down a little bit and move it across to the side so I can access my File Explorer, and I've got my Google browser experience in the background as well. So I could then jump into, say, the desktop. That's got some content sitting on it. Maybe I'm in a bad habit of saving some of that content to my desktop. Really easy to find, really accessible, but also really easily lost.
very much
from
so.
that desktop.
Especially if that device gets F12 or something.
Absolutely, and I don't, you know, computer coordinators or TSOs don't always inform everyone all the time when they're going to re-image a machine, and that content gets lost really, really quickly. Or if something happens to that particular machine, it's just stored in that one place, which is where the value of having it saved in the cloud can be. So if I do want to move some of that content, I could grab a folder or a particular document. I might move this homework folder. I'm just going to drop and drag. So because it's a folder, I can move it straight into there. So it's just letting me know that if I drop the files, I'm going to upload them to that particular folder. I can actually just add it to MyDrive. So you see the name will change in that little blue bubble down the bottom. The name will change as I move it. If I hover it over that literacy, it's going to actually pop it in that folder. So you can either open the folder you want it to be in, or I might just want to drag and drop it straight into my OneDrive. My MyDrive, sorry. It comes up with that uploading down the bottom, green tick, meaning everything's moved across. And now you've got that homework folder sitting in there right here, ready for me to access. So it has moved a copy of it. Now, a good habit will be once you've moved something from an old location to a new location, you want to work out of that new location. Try and, I guess, remember to delete it from the old location. Otherwise, we do revert back to our habit, I guess, whatever habit we're in or whatever workflow we're in, we're in that habit of doing that, which is perfectly fine. So yeah, that's getting that into there.
It's the same process. The browser. Yeah, it'd be the same process for the U-Drive as it is, like moving your U-Drive files in, as it is to doing something off a USB or hard drive. Perfect.
So let's show, I guess, using this desktop client, this Google Drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a second window. So down in my File Explorer, I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to click on File Explorer again. So I'll end up with two windows that will essentially be able to show the same thing. There's a nice little shortcut to get these things organized.
In a Windows device, if you just hold Windows key left arrow, that will snap to one side, and then it'll ask us what would we like on the other, and we're going to choose that second window. And we'll be able to have the two spaces side by side. So with the Google Drive open on the right, on the left side, we can choose that source. So that being probably that USB space.
Yeah, it could be our desktop, could be our USB drive down here.
Could be a U drive, could be any number of things.
It could even be our OneDrive. We might have some things left over in a OneDrive that, 100%. We started dabbling in OneDrive, we saved a few things, and because Windows and Microsoft tend to be a little bit more connected, I can always jump in, some things that automatically get saved to OneDrive and I wonder where they are, and I want to move them out of here and I want to shift them across. So all the options are there for you to be able to move that content from one platform on the left to consolidate them, I guess, 100%. Within your MyDrive.
Yeah. So we'll probably go, say, into MyDrive. Let's find a folder where we want them to live.
So let's say this is a bunch of PL content that I need to store inside this folder. And Jared's already selected. How'd you select those three at the same time?
On my computer, I just held shift and down arrow and highlighted them.
Nice little tip there. So you can select more than one. You don't need to do one at a time. I guess if I was doing a lot of folders, I might group them and do 3 or 4 folders at a time rather than doing it all in one go, just to ensure that it's going to cope with moving that amount of content. So I'm just going to pick up those 3 documents and drag it across. So again, you see it's copying. It's telling me where it's moving it to. And then I can drop it in there, and it actually moves it quite quickly, which is great. So then that is now stored within my Google MyDrive straight from that location.
You could go back to the old location and delete it if you choose, depending on where it's coming from. And like your U-Drive content, it's probably a good idea to get rid of the old stuff that it won't be sticking around. Adam's gone into a USB. He's just maybe grab a folder from his USB.
That could be my, lots of stuff I know we've talked about. That's my life is my USB, or my portable hard drive is my life. And it scares me every time people say that, because that thing is very easily broken, lost, corrupted. All sorts of things have happened. Many tears have been had in a school with drives going wrong. So having it stored in this place, I might grab all my content here from the last few years. Let's just say it's one folder, and I folderize it nicely. Again, copying it across the whole content of that folder comes up with a nice little percentage. Obviously, the more you're moving, the slower that bar will move. But I like that it gives you a little tracking point and it tells you when it's done and completed.
Is there a way to check that it's all come across, especially if you're doing some sort of migration of important files? How can we check?
Yeah, great idea. So using this desktop client is very reliable, but I guess to confirm, knowing that Google is very browser-based, the source of truth, I guess, is the browser itself. So let's go back into here. Over here, back into our MyDrive.
We're looking for PL, which is within the
PL, color coded that, which is nice. And then
there's a folder.
So I've got those 3 images there. Open up that user manual, and the 4 documents are there as well. So I've got all of that content saved in that PL, and I know because I can view it in the browser, it's definitely there. Just, I guess, a safety check. Not trusting it, but it's just, I guess, when we're moving a lot of content and it's really important,
Yeah.
it can never hurt to check.
Name it a certain way. If you are dragging past content, stuff you might not have accessed in a while, name it as such when you move it over. Because the big benefit here, easily search everything rather than having things in different places. Makes it very tricky to search, all in one place, and really good to go. I guess that brings us to using capturing some media and using the to capture either documents or photos, or because as teachers we take a lot of photos on our personal devices. Best practice states that we shouldn't necessarily be storing photos that contain students on our personal device, but you can use the app built into, say, an iPad to take a photo and directly store it into a shared storage location.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you've got lots of options: mobile phones, iPads, those sorts of things. Want to be using that technology, using the app to get in there. So Jared's just brought up an iPad that we've got synced up to the screen. Moving on the screen, we're just going to adjust our window sizes so you can see that kind of real life timing in terms of how long it takes for this content to get up. So Google.
Sorry, I'll open
into shared drives, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It should go into a shared drive.
Let's
put it into.
I think teacher's got a media file in there, just not always a good idea.
Yeah,
I guess when you're looking for keeping that content. So something like a media file within your teacher drive or within your could be a whole shared drive just around media. So for those staff members who maybe are doing newsletters, website updates, social media updates. It's really easy if we can collate all this information, have it stored in a nice, easy place. Also being able to get it straight in there nice and quick, which is perfect. Excellent. I know the old process of getting a plug, plugging it in, transferring it, it's slow. We want to show a workflow that works really well. So
we're using the app, right?
Yeah, getting that Google Drive app onto your iPad. So if you are using a school managed device and it's using something like Jamf to manage those apps, there is a bit of a process through Apple School Manager and Jamf to get that pushed out. If you need a bit of assistance with that, definitely pop it in the chat now if you're watching the webinar. There are some resources that will help you do that. If it's a personal device, really, really simple. Jump onto the App Store, look for the Google Drive app and download it. And the same as, I guess, the other processes, you just need to sign in with your App Education account. Once I jump in, I'm down the bottom right-hand corner. I'll show with the mouse in Files. So that's the area that I'm looking for. And of course, side by side, just as we do in the other section, I've got my MyDrive on the left and I've got shared drives on the right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the place where I want the photos to be, and then I'm going to take the photos. So really good, I guess, a little bit of a different workflow. We've got to think where we want it to be before we start snapping those photos. Just saves that later moving of images and things like that.
Which is great, especially if you're taking photos of student work samples. If you have some sort of folder structure where you can go to, you might have a folder for each student where you snap work samples to build a bit of a portfolio.
Absolutely. And I mean, students can do this as well,
yep.
Depending on what your setup for iPads is. If you do have a one-to-one system, excellent, they can sign into the app and get that going as well. So
we're going to media, aren't we?
Yeah, so I've jumped into the same media files. On the left, you can see the web browser view on the computer. On the right, this is the iPad view as well. So jumping into that media location, you can see I've already got some content in there. What we're looking for down the bottom right-hand corner is that little rainbow plus, and that's pretty uniform across all Google things, both online and on the app. So I'm gonna click on that. I do get some options to upload some other things and to start up new documents, but the one I'm looking for is use camera. So I'm gonna tap on use camera. It comes up with the camera here, so I can move this nice little magazine, T4L magazine, get my computer out of the way there. Okay, this could be taking a picture of a student's work sample, could be taking a picture of an athletics carnival, something like that. I'm gonna get nice in and close. Of course, you've got the video option as well. So I'm gonna snap that. And as soon as I take it, I've got an option to retake or use photo down the bottom left-hand corner. That looks pretty good to me. So I'm gonna click on use photo. So that's gonna drop it in instantly, and that will upload to the drive and it's ready to go. I might open this magazine and take another photo. So I'm just clicking on plus again, use camera. This might be another shot of the next page of something, and then use photo. And then it goes up in again. And you can see on the right-hand side, they're uploading. On the left-hand side, they're going to continue to appear. And we might be able to change that view, Jared, from a list view into a tile view.
Yeah, which is just this little button here. Yeah. So that's so you can see, there we go. There's the two files that we've just uploaded just now.
Perfect. So nice and easy, really, really quick. That's now in the shared drive space. So this could be, down, we might have a special event happening in the school and it's down in a classroom. I've snapped about 3 or 4 photos. They're straight up into that media drive. Now my Sam in the office has access to them straight away. They can pop them onto the school's social media or newsletter that's getting built out that day, and they're available. So there's no back and forth processing, moving, those sorts of things. I can pop them into a folder that might be named the event, and it's there for anyone to use. Really nice workflow.
Yeah, so a great little option there to use the iOS device. I guess that brings us to the end of our section here, all about what we can do to move from emerging into developing. So just to sort of reiterate, we covered, we strongly recommend jumping into using that sync client in your file explorer. Make sure that everyone in your school has a good understanding about where to create, how to share, and how to attach files. Spend a little bit of time consolidating your personal files, and where possible, upload your media into a common space. In our next video, we'll probably dive into the developing stage, what we can do around what happens with students and student interfaces, what do we do with deleting and recovering, and starting to look at organising your school files. But if you need any help in the interim, there's a couple of email addresses there that if you reach out to the school's digital strategy email address, would like some extra support, someone will contact you from there. Otherwise, you can also try the T4L Innovations email if you'd like some further support in this area. But the good thing is it's a good solid platform, and being in the cloud, it's like having a USB that follows you everywhere. Yeah. But the doors that it opens to further improve productivity, it's really valuable. And anything that will save teachers time, I think, is a great thing.
Definitely. And I guess with this emerging section, we're kind of just showing you the tip of the iceberg, I guess, or getting you that baseline of understanding. These later videos or these later webinars and sessions will continue to delve a little bit deeper, show you those sorts of things. Like Jared said, we're going to dive a little bit more into maybe student facing content, how it can work in the classroom. This is very teacher focused, making sure that all that stuff they've got the skills they need to access content, have a nice smooth workflow, and actually try and get some efficiencies out of this cloud space, while we're learning how to use it.
Yep. Hopefully you drop some questions in the chat if you're watching this as a webinar. And if you need any further support, please reach out.
Absolutely.
But thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.